I'll just add Arjun from Automation Anywhere for the next session. Hi Arjun.
Hello.
Yeah, hi Arjun. Can you hear me?
Yes, your voice is audible. Is my
Yeah.
voice okay?
Yes, it's audible. How are you
Okay.
doing?
Fine. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good to
So
know.
like yeah, we have started the session from morning 10:30, and it has been around five speakers sessions.
Okay.
So
Okay.
before you, we had Hank.
Okay.
So anyways, we are 5 minutes ahead of the scheduled time, so you
Okay.
can make use of that extra time as well. So I'll put your screen on stream. So requesting you to
Okay.
share your screen. Yeah.
Okay.
Meanwhile, you can introduce about yourself and about your talk. What is it going to be?
Sure. Yes.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. So it's great to be here. A lot of techies, I know, watching this online. It's interesting times now. We should have probably been meeting in person, but now we are all doing this online. But at least there's an option that we can leverage and attend the event irrespective of the place we are at. So that's what is the good thing about these online conferences. So just like he mentioned, my name is Arjun Meda, and I am part of developer relations team at Automation Anywhere, a global RPA company. And today we are going to look at a use case on how to build a sentiment analysis bot, in which we are going to look at how we can use the Automation Anywhere platform and also use the Azure Text Analytics APIs to get the sentiment for any of the text which you want to pass across. Before we get into the session, do you have any questions? I believe folks can type in their questions right now also, right?
Yeah, they can post their question on the comment box.
Okay, great. Yeah. So
Yeah.
just in case, if you have, before we start in like 3 minutes or so, if you have any expectations or I'm not sure if you have already learned about or known about the RPA platform, if you could share your knowledge or what do you know about RPA, that will be great. So that I'll take one or two questions if there are any, and then we'll get started.
Sure. Also, Arjun, I would like to mention you there are few folks from the audience who are actually answering the questions. So
Oh,
I see
nice. Okay.
people are really enthusiastic and sharing their knowledge from the audience panel as well.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. I think people will take some time. So while starting with your session, in between you can check if there is any question. You can answer them in between your session as well. Also, if you want after your session, you can do it.
Okay, great. Then I'll start sharing my screen and start taking you through the slides. Let me
Okay,
know if my system is
people have
right.
started responding that
Okay,
they have heard about digital transformation 4.0 and
okay,
RPA is one of that.
okay. That's great. So I'll just briefly discuss, tell you about what RPA is all about and how you can make use of it. And then we'll get into our use case and the demo.
Sure.
Can you please confirm if you can see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen. So shall I put it on a screen?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yes.
So now I hope you're able to see my presentation, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So let me get into the session and I'll talk about how do you build a sentiment analysis bot. Even before we get into that, I would like to introduce you to the topic of RPA in case if you're not familiar. If you're already familiar, well and good, it'll be like a quick refresher for a few minutes. As a human, in our workplace, we mainly use computers, phones, to interact with different kind of applications. As you can see here, we work with, like, we will use computers and telephones, and then we work with spreadsheets, PowerPoints, files, folders, calendar invites, PDF documents, and chat applications. So this is just a few to name, And this takes a lot of time in our work life. But what we want to instead do is like, if we can automate a lot of these work so that the repetitive and mundane tasks are handed over to the bots, while we can continue to focus on high creative value tasks. So RPA, the definition is using software robots, in short we will call it as bots, to automate the manual, repetitive and mundane tasks and processes so that we can be productive. Once these tasks are automated, we can spend our time on customer centric tasks, high cognitive thinking tasks. It will also help us save a lot of time. Also, to introduce one more topic, in RPA, we have two types of automation: attended versus unattended automation. First, I'll explain about attended automation. This type of automation will require human intervention for certain tasks in a process. Let's take an example of invoice processing, in which there are 10 steps. The first 6 steps can be automated, and then the 7th step is a manual step. It can be anything like approval. And then the step 8 to 10 can again be automated. So in this case, there is a human in the loop. So that's where once the user starts running the bot, it will run the first 6 steps, and then it will wait for the 7th step, that is the manual step, to be executed, and then it will continue. This is called attended automation, and this is mainly used in the front office, like a lot of contact centers is where they use the attended automation. On the other side, there is unattended automation, in which the execution happens without any human intervention. Going back to the previous example, if all the 10 steps can be automated, in that case, there is no human involvement at all. So this bot is not going to run in the user machine. Instead, it will be executed in remote machines, and the user is only going to look at the results. So that way, he is still in control of what is happening, because he has the dashboards, he has the details to look at how the bot performed, but he does not have to do those tasks. That is the main difference between attended and unattended automation. And coming to our use case, sentiment analysis. First, let's understand why do we need sentiment analysis, and then we can deep dive into the use case. First and foremost is brand monitoring. In this digital era, everything is happening online. That means there is a lot of information being shared on social media. You want to understand what people are talking about your particular brand or the company you represent, or it can be even your personal Twitter handles or any kind of social media hashtags. If you want to monitor that and also understand what the users are saying, and in case if there is something wrong going on, can you correct it? How can you get what the user is trying to say? And in case of positive reactions, you can definitely acknowledge the same. In case if you receive a negative feedback, how can you quickly respond to it? So that's very important. So that's where we are looking at the brand monitoring. And then the customer support. If you have seen a lot of Twitter handles, people ask questions on Twitter saying like, I have this challenge, I have that challenge, and then the companies respond to the social media channels directly. So this way, you can again get the content about what is the kind of questions which are coming around, and then you can analyze what are the different buckets in which you can classify this data, so that next time, how can you improve your processes, or how can you even improve the channels with which you communicate, so that it will help you identify the most effective communication channels. Also, you can prioritize the customer service issues. If you are getting a lot of service issues, your service team might not be in a position to handle every request on a high priority. So that's when it's very important for you, if you have a bot which can go through all the requests which are coming in and then categorize which one is important and which one has to be like on the important and high category, and other ones whichever can wait until the high and urgent priority tasks are completed. Also, if you want to do market research, product feedback collection, so that's where sentiment analysis use cases are very important. So in this sentiment analysis bot, we have used this couple of platforms. The first one is called Automation Anywhere RPA platform. The name of the platform is called A2019. That's the core platform on which we are going to build the bot. And then next, we are going to use Microsoft Azure Text Analytics API. So the data, whatever we have, we are going to pass it to the Azure Text Analytics API and get the sentiment score to understand what the value is between 0 and 1. 0 is considered as negative and 1 is considered as positive. So that's where, based on the number response you're going to get, you can analyze if it falls under a positive sentiment or it falls under a negative sentiment. And you can define the thresholds, you can play around with that. And based on the response we are getting, we are going to categorize the different data. And then if the data is on the negative side, we want to log a ticket using Salesforce API. So that way, any negative feedback is logged as a ticket and the service team can address those. And the last one is, once the bot is run, you can also look at the results on a visualization platform. Again, it's part of A2019 and the product is called Bot Insights. So now let's look at the sentiment analysis bot workflow. Reading the data is the first step, that is getting the input. It can be from anywhere. You can get it from any social media channels, you can get it from e-commerce websites or your own website, or even when you're running an event or so, and then people are tweeting about it or sharing information about your hashtags, you can read it. For demo purpose, what I've done is I'm just going to take a few records and locally store it, and then we will work on the next steps. So once we have the data, in our case, we are going to take it from a CSV file. We're going to loop through each row, and whatever data is there as part of that CSV file, we will pass it to Azure API. And Azure API is going to give us the sentiment score, which we will analyze. So this is how I've categorized to consider the sentiment zones. We will consider the text as a positive sentiment if you are getting a score greater than 70%. That means if the value returned from the API is greater than 0.7, then we will consider it as a positive comment. If it's anywhere between 40% to 69%, then we will consider it as neutral. And if it is less than 40%, then we will consider it as negative. So in this case, we have the positive scenarios is anyways good. So you can just go and acknowledge and thank the user for giving you a positive feedback. Whereas when you're getting a neutral feedback, you want to log a ticket in the Salesforce, and also you can put it as a medium priority, or even you can consider it as a low priority based on how the business has defined the rules for you. On the other side, if the score is less than 40%, you're again going to log a ticket in the Salesforce, but this time you're going to make it as a high priority, or you can also put it on medium priority, again depending on how your business has defined the rules. So this is a simple workflow I've put out here for the demo. So now let me take you through the demo. I'll show you through the platform and how the bot is written and how the data is being passed across the platforms. First, we will look at the CSV file. So I just have a simple CSV file in which I have 3 lines of feedback. The first, second, and the third. The first one, your service is very good, just upgrade it to an annual plan. So I'm looking at a use case where it's a cable operator service. So that's where they're getting the feedback, and they want to understand what the feedback means. And next one, like the application is not responding. I hate to continue if it is not resolved by today. So in this case, the user is trying to use the app and log a ticket, but he's not able to do it. So in this case, he's again going to the social media to share comments about the issues which he is facing. The third customer says, I like the service and happy to continue. So now, first, we will look at how the data responds in the Azure API directly. And then I will also show you how it is configured in the A2019 platform. So I'll take the first line. I'll go to the Azure API. So this is the Azure platform in which I have taken the text analytics API. And here, as you can see, this API can help you detect the language of the text. It can find out the entities. It can identify the key phrases. It can also do the sentiment analysis. In our use case, we are going to look at sentiment analysis. And I've selected the host. So that's going to be the endpoint. And then I have to create an account for which I'm going to get the subscription key, which is like a password for you to use. And then here is the request body. So this is how I'm going to pass the information to the Azure API, and I'm going to get the response back. So this is the text which I have taken it from the CSV file, the first line. And this is the request URL, which is being hit. And now I'm going to click on send. Once I scroll down, I get a response back saying it's a 200 OK. And now I see that I get a score of 0.96. So that means that's close to 96%. That means this is a positive sentiment. Let's take another example. I'll take this, which says application is not responding. Now I'm going to go here and change the text. Click on send. Scroll down. Again, response is good. Now you can notice that it has a 0.076. So that means this is a negative sentiment. Similarly, we'll just look at one more example. In this case, again, we are expecting a positive sentiment to come back. Again, you can see that the score is 0.95. That's again on the positive side. So this is how first you can check how if you have all the endpoints and the subscription everything being configured, so that it makes your life very easy when you have to go and build a bot. Now, I'll take you to the RPA platform, that is Automation Anywhere A2019. So this is how the tool looks like, and it's a totally browser-based platform. So you can log in. I mean, you can just create a free account. I'll share the resources after the demo, and it's also available on the Confab GitHub page. So feel free to go ahead and try out on the community edition, which is free of cost. So here on the left side, you can see that there are bots. So these are the bots, which this is where we are going to build the bots. When I click on my bots, and then you can create multiple folders, and then you can create bots within these folders. Again, next one is credentials. So this is where whenever you have any kind of secured information to be stored, you can save it in the credential vault. And then now let's moving to the devices. Because the entire platform runs from the browser, when you have to execute, you need to connect this platform to your local system. So that's where the devices come into place. And this is my device. This is my ID, which I am using. You can see here. And this is my machine name. Also, I'll show you how we can check for the connection. Once you open the task manager, you go to the services, and this is where you will see there is a Automation Anywhere bot agent. So this confirms like your machine is connected So this you have to ensure before you run your bot. And also you can see this is a green tick symbol which is required. So this is how you connect the browser based platform to your local machine. Now let's look at the bot. Now there are two files. We will only look at these two files. You can ignore the rest of them. The first one, I've called it as a sentiment analysis bot. And then I also have a child bot which says create a case in Salesforce. And I'm going to invoke this create a case only whenever it is required based on the analytics sentiment score. So now let's look at the master bot, that is the sentiment analysis bot. I'll just close this ribbon to the left side. So on the left side, you have all this actions. So actions mean like this is a platform where you can drag and drop all the commands instead of coding. So this is a low code and no code platform. So that's where, say for example, you want to work with a browser. All you have to do is like just open this package, within which you will see there is a command called launch website. So you can just double click on this, and this is your workbench. This is where you're going to build your bot by dragging and dropping all these options. So now I'm going to explain you how the entire bot is built, and then we will execute the bot and look at the results. And one more aspect of this workbench, there are multiple views in which you can look at this. This is called a flow view, which is very similar to how a flow chart looks like. You can zoom in, zoom out. Just like any other platform, you have this try catch blocks for error handling. And this entire flow view is like a flow chart. You can just scroll down. So this is how the bot looks like. Whenever there are branchings, everything is listed here. And then there is a list view. So this is like a line view. This is where you're going to kind of look like the code, but there is not much to write the code as such. Instead, you're just going to configure. And the third one is dual view, where it is going to show you both a flow view and the list view together. So we'll go back to the flow view. To start with, you can write comments. So again, to search for any command, all you have to do is like type here, and this is the comment. I've dragged and dropped it here. On the right side, I have filled up the information saying like fill up the URI and the subscription key to get the response from API. So wherever you want to write the comments, this is where you can write it in the bot. Next is the try catch block. So all the commands, whatever I'm going to write, it's going to be there in the try block. And later, if there are any issues, which will be caught under the catch block. And then the next step is, it's called step. So what this does is like, this is used for logical grouping. Again, you just type step here, and then it will contain a sequence of steps. So the first step, we will look at reading the CSV. Again, if you want to add any kind of titles, this is where you will write read CSV, click on apply. Next, first we want to read the data from the CSV file. The command is, I'll again type CSV here. You will see there are three commands: open, read, and close. First, we are going to use the open command. So this is the open command. On the right side, we will configure the values. The session name is used so that wherever you are using the CSV files, it is like a connector between the commands. So if you have used input, in the next command, wherever you are going to deal with the CSV file, you have to enter the same session name. And next, the file path. There are multiple ways in which you can pass the file path. First one is control room. So as you can see on the top left, this is called the control room. Like, this is the nervous system of this platform, within which you are creating the creator module is embedded into the control room. So you're going to write the bot directly here. So in this case, you click on browse and then browse to the file. As you can see, I have my CSV file on the desktop. Let me go back to my desktop. So this is the file I'm referring to. the feedback. And next, because my CSV file contains a header, I don't want to pass this particular row to be processed. So that's why I am going to select this option called contains header, so that that is not considered for processing. Next, you have to configure the delimiter. So this is where you can select whatever is your delimiter which you have used. In my case, I've used comma. So if you have used any tabs or any new line or any other character as a specific delimiter, you can mention it here. And then if the data in the cells contain any leading spaces or the trailing spaces, you can remove by checking these checkboxes. And then the type of encoding which is used in your CSV file. So by default, it is UTF-8, and which is the most popular one. So that's how I have configured this as encoding as UTF-8. And once you do this, because I've not made any changes, there is an apply button here which is disabled. But if you make any changes, say for example, I just do this, now you can see that the apply button is there. So I'll just fix this, and then I can just click on apply if there are any changes. So first, we have opened the CSV file. Next, I want to read the content from the CSV file. Again, I'm using the same session name as input, and the data, whatever I'm reading from the CSV file, it is going to be in the form of a table. So that's where I'm configuring it to a variable called S input table. So by default, it will be strings. So that's why I've used the naming convention S, which is a best practice. And then the name of the table here is input table. I'll also take you to the variable section. On the left side, if you see, click on plus. So this is where you can create all the variables. And you can select the type of variables here in the type dropdown. You can select any string, number, datetime, boolean. Table is the data table format which we are using in this particular variable. Similarly, we are also going to use a record in which in the entire table, if you want to only consider the first record or any record, individual row of information, that's where we are going to use record. So now I have the data being read into the input data table called as input table. Next, we're going to connect to the API, that is Azure Text Analytics API in this case. And because I have multiple rows of information, I'm going to use the command called loop. Again, come to the left side actions panel. Type loop, you can see there is a loop, continue, and break. So this loop is what I've dragged and dropped it here. On the right side, it is asking you for the iterator. So what do you want to iterate based on the information which is there in the data table? Again, there are different values. You can as well read each row from the CSV or a text file, or in this case, we are going to use this option called for each row in the table. So that means for each row in that, every record is going to be processed one by one. And then, so now I have to configure which table from which it has to pick up the data. So that's where I'm configuring the S input table, which we have defined previously. And then it is going to pick up one row of information. And that row of information is going to be stored in the next variable, which is of the type record. And in this case, I've given it a name called S record. So this is how I'm creating a loop to pass the information from the data table to the Azure API. The next command is REST Web Services. Again, on the left side, actions panel, if I type REST, under the REST Web Services package, you can read through delete, get, patch, post, put, all the methods are available. On the right side, first you need the URI. So that is the endpoint you are going to define where to which you want the bot to hit the URI. Again, you can see that in the variables, if you just double click on the URI, you can see that I've configured this in the variable. And next, in the authentication, Here there are multiple modes of authentication. In this case, I'm going to use the authentication based on the subscription key. So that's why here I'm selecting it as no authentication, while there is the next section called custom headers. This is where I'm going to pass the subscription key, which you would have seen earlier in my Azure portal. So I'm passing the subscription key, and the value is stored in this variable called subscription key. You can see it here. So this is the subscription key I am using. And next, I have to pass the data. Like I have to pass the text. So in this case, this API takes the input as a JSON. So that's where I'm going to pass the text. Here you can see record of 0. So that means there is only one column, and the column index starts from 0. So that's why I'm using this variable within this JSON, so that it will pass this particular data from the data table to the API. And once the API responds, I'm going to store the data back. In this case, I'm going to get a dictionary of strings, and I've defined the variable name as vResponse API. Now we have the response back from the API, which we have to process. I'll show you how the response, you have seen this response earlier. This is how it is going to get you the response. But for you, the information which is required is only this score. So that's where we will do the string manipulation to get the required information. For that, first I have this information in the dictionary of strings. Next, I'm using this command called dictionary get, in which I'm going to get the content in the body of the dictionary and assign it to a string variable. So in this case, prompt assignment is a system variable into which I'm going to store the text which is received from the API. And I can use message boxes to showcase what is being received from the API. And because this message boxes, it will need the human intervention. Until unless you click on OK, it will not proceed. So that's where this option comes in handy, where you're going to check this checkbox which says close message box after 5 seconds. Next, so now whatever variables which I want to analyze and look at the details in the dashboard, that's what I'm going to use it in the command called analyze. Again, on the left side actions panel, if you type analyze, you have open and close. You can use these commands wherever you want within your bot, within which whatever variables are being used, they will be tracked. So that's the concept of this analyze package. So here I'm leaving the transaction name as default. Next, we're going to extract the text. We have the text stored in this variable called prompt assignment. And now this is how it is going to look like. So I want to pick up only this particular data. So what I'm going to do is, like, I will define the text before and after, so that it will give me this piece of text. That's what I'm using here, before and or after. So before text is score. After the score, I want to pick up the value, which is the first occurrence. And just before the parenthesis closure, that is this closure, after the value, this is the first character I'm going to receive. So that's where I'm going to end my text. And then if there are no matches found, I want to respond with an empty string. And number of characters you can define. In this case, I'm defining all. Trim the extracted text and remove the enter key if there is information, if there is an enter key being there. And now I'm storing this response score in a variable called sentiment, and I'm just going to store it as a string, because this particular command accepts only strings. You can convert it into number if you want, but in this case I'll leave it here. So this is how you can extract the text. Again, to look at what is the score received, I'm going to use a message box in which I will write sentiment score is and the variable which we previously defined. Now I have the score, which is the sentiment. So I'm using this if loop now, the if condition. So the conditions, you can select multiple conditions, like whether it's a string condition, whether a file exists, whether a window exists, image exists, any value. In this case, I'm going to just select number condition, and then the value s sentiment is a string which I'm converting it into a number because I want to check the value against a particular number. So that's where I'm selecting. First condition is if it is greater than 70%, that is 0.7 in this case. So this is how the if condition works. And then if that is true, again, I've used a command called string assign. So here I'm going to assign a particular value to a string variable. Here I'm using a variable called sentiment zone, which is of the type string. And because the score is 70% and above, I'm using this as positive. Similarly, if condition, now I have a if else condition. Again, same condition, same checks. If the number condition, that is sentiment value, is between 40% and 69%. So that's where I'm using this and condition and converting the sentiment score to a number and then checking if it is between 40% and 69%. If that is true, that's when I want to assign the value called neutral to the variable called sentiment zone. And once this neutral is created, as we have seen in the workflow before, I have a child bot which is going to take the data from here, and then it will run the child bot which creates a case in the Salesforce. Now let's go to that Salesforce. So this is how the bot looks like on how to create a case in the Salesforce. So all it does is it is again using this REST web services. You need a account created in the Salesforce so that you can hit this API, and then you're going to pass the passwords, the client ID, the client secret. These are all the parameters required to hit the endpoint and get the response. So this is where I'm going to first get my auth ID, and I'm going to get it in the dictionary of strings, which again I'm going to extract the text access token and then store it in the variable called extracted value. For the next web service command, I'm going to hit another URI which is going to create a case in the, it's basically like an incident is being created, and for that I'm passing the authorization as the extracted value which I received from the previous API call. Again, whatever information I'm getting, I'm going to extract the text so that I have the URL value. So what is the URL value? In this case, it's going to be the ID for that particular account. And then I can validate by launching the website and passing that variable to check if the case is created. And the last one, if you want to see the case number, whatever is the case number for which you have to pass the ID number and get the case number for each of the tickets being created. Again, I'm passing the same authorization value which I have passed in the previous. So this is how, and finally, I'm going to get a case number which I'm going to display in the form of a message box. So this is how it works in the child bot. Going back to the master bot. Now this is where the task bot was called. So this is going to pass values. Say in my case, I'm going to say the record S record, and I want to pass the 0th index. That is the first value in the column. And then whatever is the priority, whatever I want to set here, I can set this as medium. Then click on apply. Similarly, there is last condition being checked, if else condition, else condition, in which I'm going to assign the value as negative. And again, I'm going to pass I'm going to call the child bot and then create a Salesforce ticket with a higher priority. So that's how the bot works. And once it is all done, I just want to get the sentiment zone in a message box. This is just to see how the bot is responding. And at the end, I am using this command called analyze close. Here, this is where I'm going to define which are the variables I want to track. So in my case, I just want to track the sentiment zone, whether it is a positive or a negative sentiment. So now let's save the bot and let's give this a spin to see how it runs. Before that, I'm just going to close this CSV file. I'll run this bot. So now the bot is being deployed to your local computer from the cloud instance. Let's give it a few seconds for the bot to launch. And as you can see here, this is the response which we have received from the API call. And next we have extracted the score only. So this is the score. And because it's more than 90%, it is considered as a positive. So in this case, we are not going to create a Salesforce ticket. Moving on to the next row. Again, this time it's a negative score, 0.07, because the second row was negative information. Now the child bot is being invoked, and you can see that there is a case being created in the Salesforce. So in the background, you can also see that this is a sentiment zone is negative, and that's why this ticket is created, and it will have a case number and the priority. And now the third row, again, this is on a positive side. So that's why the sentiment score is 0.95. And there's no ticket to be created because it is there on the positive side. Now wait for the bot to complete the execution so that we can look at the dashboard. Okay, now the bot execution is completed. I'll click on close. Now you see this option called analyze. I'm going to click on here and see what is the sentiment zones, that is positive and negative zones. Here you can see that we processed 3 records in the bot, and then you can visualize in any kind of different charts you are interested in. This is a donut chart. Here it is showing you there are 2 positive cases, and then there is a negative case. And again, there is a bar chart, the line chart, which shows you there are 2 positive cases and a negative case. So, and again, you can extend this use case to directly pick up the data from Twitter's or any of the social media pages or even e-commerce platforms. And after this visualization is created, you can even send this visualization to the recipients through emails. You can use Outlook or any of your Gmail, any kind of other servers to mail it out. So this is how you can create a sentiment analytics bot using Automation Anywhere Platform A2019 and also the Azure Text Analytics API. Okay, that's all about the demo. So now I am happy to answer any questions. Also, before I take up a question, I just wanted to show you some of the resources as well. So to try out this platform, feel free to go to this URL. This URL is again shared on the Confab page as well. So this gives you the free access to the Automation Anywhere A2019 platform. It's a community edition, so totally free of cost. You can try this. And if you want to learn how to use the platform, we have Automation Anywhere University. So here you have courses for different roles like project manager, developers, business analyst, and even process specialists. So feel free to go ahead here. And again, all the courses are available free of cost for you, along with the certifications. And this is my email ID, and I'm also pretty active on the LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out. But just a note on the LinkedIn side, I'm actually at the maximum 30,000 connects. So I might not be able to accept. So feel free to write to me. That will be better to reach out to me. Okay, now I am ready to take any questions.